It is a strange feeling when your own memory of sleep begins to feel like a foreign body in reality. The app is simply called Somnus. No long logo, no flashy advertising. Just a simple, dark blue icon on the smartphone, promising to perfect my sleep quality through biometric resonance. In the first few nights, it was almost pleasant. The app requires you to place the camera on a tripod next to the pillow and put a small, almost inconspicuous sensor shell under the mattress. It analyzes the micro movements of the muscles, the change in skin temperature, and the kicker, the resonance of the heart rate during REM phases. The app claims not just to record dreams, but to interpret the bioelectric signals to identify stress factors in the subconscious. After the second night came the first notification. A soft, almost inaudible chime while I lay there in half sleep, my eyelids feeling heavy as lead. Somnus has analyzed your nightly activity. Sleep quality, 88%. Dream summary, you walked down a long gray street. It rained fine dust. You were looking for a key. I sat up. That was strange. I remember rain, I remember dust, but no street. I thought to myself, that's just the thing with dreams. The app simply translates what my brain scrambles together at night. A key element for optimization, I thought. The next morning, the app was there again. Summary report. You were in a large, empty building with high windows. The air smelled of burnt sugar. You spoke with a person whose face you could not see. The app emphasized identified stress level high. I bought a strong coffee and stared at the display. Burnt sugar, that is a smell I know, when you leave too much caramel in the pan. But I was alone in the apartment. There was no building, no conversation. Only that dry, sickly note in my nose that lingered even as I brushed my teeth in the bathroom. The third night was different. The app sent the message even before I had turned off the alarm. Summary report, you entered the city. The architecture is asymmetrical. The inhabitants wear no faces. You found the key. The city. Here, something tipped. I lived in a suburb where there was no city that looked the way it described. I had never heard of asymmetrical buildings or faceless people in my dreams. I closed my eyes and tried to remember this city. I saw a gray neighborhood. It wasn't just gray. It was an ugly ashen gray that clung to the spaces between the buildings. The houses seemed to be made of a material that looked almost like frozen mud, and the people. When I saw them, they were there, they moved, they walked in formations, but they had no features, no eyes, no noses, just smooth, flesh-colored surfaces where a face should be. I shook my head. That was a nightmare. A classic, nasty nightmare. I deleted the app. I was convinced it was just a flawed algorithm interpreting noise from the sensors and squeezing it into pseudo-logical sentences. I didn't want to sleep anymore without that thing watching me. I put the phone in the hallway and went to bed. I slept deeply and soundly. I did not wake up to an alarm. I woke up to a cold so intense it made the skin on my arms almost ache. I lay on my back. The blanket half slipped from my body. It was pitch black. I looked for my phone. It was in the hallway on the small side table. I had to get up. I stepped out of the bedroom. The hallway was cold. It felt as if the heating hadn't been running for hours. My breath formed small white clouds in the air. I turned on the light. Nothing was different. The apartment looked as it always did. My shoes stood neatly in the corner. My key hung on the hook, but the air was still heavy, and it smelled of burnt sugar. I went to the phone. The display lit up. Somnus, you have found the key. The app had sent a new message while I was sleeping, but I had only just gotten up. My heartbeat accelerated. I felt my pulse throbbing in my temples. I wanted to delete the app, but my fingers were shaking so much I could hardly hit the right spot. Then I noticed something else. The sensor shell under the mattress. It was glowing. A very faint, pulsing violet. I looked back into the bedroom. The door was open a crack. Outside in the hallway, it was quiet, but the silence wasn't empty. It was that kind of silence you only have when you are in a massive, empty space. I remembered the city, the asymmetrical building with the high windows. I closed my eyes and saw it before me. I saw the window. It was high up. I saw the glass, which was slightly wavy, and then I saw the pane move inward, very slowly, without sound. A small, pale finger pressed against the pane from the inside. I opened my eyes. The apartment was empty, but the feeling that someone or something stood in the room was so real, it squeezed the air from my lungs. I dared not take a step. I stood there in the hallway, shoulders hunched, knees trembling. My phone vibrated in my hand. A new notification. Somnus, the city expects you now. The texts were getting shorter, the grammar began to crumble. The city, now. Here, here. I wanted to scream, but my throat was constricted. It wasn't a scream that came out, but only a wet, rattling sound. Then I heard a sound from above. It wasn't a step on the floor, it was the sound of something scraping across the ceiling. A dry, rhythmic scraping, like fingernails on dry plaster. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It moved from the ceiling to the bedroom. I saw the shadow under the threshold. It was long and thin. It didn't move like a human. It moved jerkily, almost like a spider pushing its legs into the room alternately. I wanted to run away. I wanted the door, outside, into the hallway, into the world where it was still light and people had faces, but my feet were glued to the floor. It wasn't that I couldn't walk. It was as if the air itself were becoming thick, like syrup. I could only lean forward with great effort. The scraping stopped right in front of the bedroom door. Silence. Then I heard the breathing. It wasn't human breathing. It was a rhythmic whistling sound, as if someone were trying to suck air through a straw that was too narrow. The door, which stood open only a crack, began to move. It wasn't being pushed out from the inside. Quiet. The door swung open. The room beyond was not dark. War erfüllt von einem fahlen, schmutzigen Licht, das von der Decke kam, und dort, in der Mitte des Raums, stand etwas. Es war hoch, viel zu hoch für einen Menschen. Geschweige wie ein Schatten, das in die Länge gezogen wurde. Es hatte keine Haut. Es war wie ein Gebilde aus zusammengesotten, grauem Fleisch und geflochtenen Fäsern. Und wo das Gesicht sein sollte, da war nur eine glatte, feuchte Fläche. Es hatte keine Augen. Aber ich wusste, dass es mich sah. Ich wusste, dass es mich wahrnahm. Es war kein biologisches Sehen. Es war die Art von Wahrnehmung, die man hat, wenn man ein Objekt in einem Raum identifiziert. Ein Hindernis, ein Objekt. Es neigte den Kopf zur Seite. Das Geräusch von brechendem Glas Wallis, fast anhörbar. Dann begann es sich zu bewegen. Es machte keinen Schritt. Es glitt über den Boden, die langen, dünnen Gliedmaßen bewegten sich in einer flüssigen, unnatürlichen Weise. Ich wollte schreien. Ich wollte wirklich schreien.